business, we have Manchester High School issues.
Madam Chair, I have a motion that I'd like to make regarding Manchester High School issues.
Absolutely.
I do have a written copy of this that I can present. I make a motion to direct the superintendent to obtain the updated enrollment numbers for each of the core subject classes within all of the Manchester high schools every 2 weeks. A list is to be compiled of all core classes that exceed the state standard of 30 students per class, as well as all labs that exceed the state standard of 25 students per class. This list is to be included in a draft letter outlining Hooksit's concerns regarding these numbers. The letter the draft letter would require the review and approval of its contents prior it being sent to the Manchester Board of School Committee. This letter shall also include any concerns that the administration considers relevant and important to note in the letter regarding Manchester's compliance with the high school contract. This letter shall be sent to the Mayor of Manchester and CC to the New Hampshire Commissioner of Education and the Hooksett School Board.
Second.
Can you speak to your motion?
Yes, I think that since we have filed the breach letter, that it's incumbent upon us to now follow up and monitor what's going on in Manchester. And I think that we should do that. I picked an interval of 2 weeks so that we can have a constant class size number. So far, all we have really done is picked 1 or 2 data points from the whole year. And if I were the other side arguing against us, I would say that that's not a very good sampling of us trying to break a contract based on only getting numbers at maybe 2 points throughout the year. So I think that it would also make the Commissioner of Education aware of our concerns on a periodic basis, and it would give the Hooksett School Board a good position or good information about what our class sizes are and how they're trending and so forth. So that's the reason for my motion.
I definitely like to hear of getting information. Just wondering about if this is really strategically where we want to place ourselves yet, if we've had any conversations with the school board's lawyer, where we're at with that, and be sure that we have all the I's and T's crossed. Unfortunately, I was trying to follow along, but it was a pretty lengthy motion, and so I'd like to at least take a look at it and read it a little bit more, so I understand exactly with letters going to who and what the letters will actually say. But I do feel really comfortable with requesting of the class sizes on a regular basis. I think that would definitely help us.
Well, I think regardless of where we are with the breach letter and the contract, I think we should, and we have many students over at West and Central right now, and I think all the information we'll get is good. I'm not sure if every 2 weeks will work or every month, but I think if we can get every 2 weeks, that's great. But I think for our students, for the sake of our students who are there now, I think we should be monitoring this as well.
I'd be glad to paraphrase a little. I do realize this is a little bit of legalese, but just to make it accurate. The basic idea here is that every 2 weeks we'll sample those classes and make everyone that's involved in this aware of what those numbers are. If Dr. Littlefield can't obtain those numbers, then I would suggest that would be the letter, that we could not obtain the numbers. And that would, if he could outline what his effort was to obtain those numbers, we've had issues with that before. I would think that during this period, they should have a system in place to be able to report these numbers to us on a regular basis. And if Dr. Littlefield needs to come back and say that for some reason a 3-week interval works, I mean, I think the board would be willing to consider. I wanted a starting point here, and I also wanted enough data points so that we are not picking a point in time. If you remember back in October, we asked for the October 1st numbers. and received the October 16th numbers. And I'm not saying that there was any reasoning for that, but that put us back 2 weeks from obtaining that data. So I think perhaps once we got this started, that there could be a system put in place to allow this to happen pretty smoothly. And like I said, if Dr. Littlefield finds that there's difficulty, he can come back to this board, or he can explain his difficulty in the letter, which would be stating our case that we cannot obtain the numbers.
So just for clarification for me, we're gonna send them a letter that we wanted every 2 weeks, or we're gonna ask them every 2 weeks?
So my motion says that Dr. Littlefield will obtain the enrollment numbers. So that's separate from a letter. That's however Dr. Littlefield chooses to obtain those numbers. Then he will construct a letter with those numbers, a list of the numbers that are over 30 and over 25, along with any other relevant problems that he sees that concern Manchester's compliance with the contract. So my point is, if Dr. Littlefield is made aware of other situations by parents, and he looks into it, he finds that it's worthy to put in the letter, then he will put that in the letter as another concern he has with compliance of the contract. I have that, you know, it would come here for approval. I would tend to think that once we looked at the letter, we may vote to pre-approve these. I mean, I'm looking more at the form of the letter, just so that the school board knows what is included, so forth. Then if after that they're sent out routinely, personally I'd be fine with that. And if Dr. Littlefield feels that there's things that need to be in there that are relevant, because he may hear things that we don't. The parents contact him about problems that are going on or issues. I think that he could include those in that letter, and it would be authorized by the school board for him to send that letter.
Dr. Littlefield, I have a question for you. Is a 2-week time frame to get the numbers from them realistic, or are we looking more at 3 weeks or 4 weeks if we're asking for them? When we asked for them once, it took us 6 weeks to get them. It's going to be realistic and not create.
Well, if the intent is 2 weeks, then that's what I'll request. We have a change in semester, which should give us a new set of numbers. So there should be, but I would anticipate getting significant changes second semester and first semester. Whether they're good or bad, I would expect them to be different. Thereafter, I think it's the board that will request what you want. I wouldn't expect them to change dramatically over 2 periods. And they generate their class size reports by simply running the master schedule, which is an automated function. So I think that it can be done without a great deal of difficulty. I would expect to see significant differences in the first report, and then in subsequent reports, they should be pretty close.
Madam Chair? And I think the timing of this is good in the sense that it may show what is that dampening period. How long after the semester starts does it take to get them to a level point, and what is that level point? And that's why I think we need more data points. Because like what we did at the beginning of the year was we just waited till 6 weeks in, and then we got a number. So we really don't know how bad things were or good things were until we got to that number on October 16th. So I would rather see a little bit more resolution in there to see how, because for Manchester's benefit, if it's being handled very efficiently, then, you know, because we are kind of expecting a spike in the beginning of the semester, but it may be brought down under control within 2 weeks. And that's data we should have, if that's the case. So, that's my reasoning.
And I'm wondering what the first set when you would like the first set of data?
With Mr. Stats tomorrow in
Yeah.
Manchester.
So would you want that for your next board meeting? I just want to know what I'm going to
Yeah,
request.
well, my idea would be that hopefully you could request the information, compile it, and have it for our next board meeting. Whether that information fits to you, I'm not so concerned whether they're Tuesday's numbers or Wednesday's numbers. You know, as long as, and I'm not so concerned if it's 15 days between or 16, but I'm just trying to use an interval of approximately 2 weeks so that we get a better idea. And then there's going to be some time for somebody to run through that schedule and figure out, you know, do the subtraction as far as which ones of the classes are under or over 30 and over 25 in the last. And one of the things I think that one of the master schedules that we saw was a little bit confusing because they were showing level classes of 3 and 4 as separate classes, but when you looked at the time and you looked at the room number, they were in the same room. So I understand this first round may take a little bit of figuring out.
Is there any more discussion? Do you have any questions for us?
Dave, just one little quick thing, it's 24 for the lab science, this is the max, not 25, but.
I thought it was 25.
24 for the labs.
I'll amend that then to say 24 students per class for labs. And I have a copy for you, Leanne, if you could just make that change.
And I think the other thing we should do is define, if I'm going to do some analysis, core classes. I mean, I know it's English, math, science, social studies, foreign language. You have like unified arts.
Well, I think if we, and perhaps the word core is too general, but under the state statutes, they exclude certain classes and leave the rest. That's my remembrance of that. They say not band, not choir, not phys ed, you know, and classes like that. I mean, I would leave that up to your discretion. I think as long as we, maybe we need to set out what that criteria is. I'm fine with you setting that criteria. Because obviously, we know chorus and band and those classes are expected to be at much higher level.
Yes, ma'am.
But I wouldn't mind helping with the analysis type of stuff. I mean, if we get an electronic copy like we have in the past, when we finally did get one, you know, I mean, I know you're busy to look through every class and do an analysis. I wouldn't mind helping with that, and I've done that with the past numbers. So, and we were given semester 2 numbers last time. They could have changed since then, but it looks a little worse next semester, this coming semester, with the past numbers. But I'm just saying I wouldn't mind helping if we just get an electronic copy of that, of the numbers.
Any more discussion? Call to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair, I have another motion that I'd like to make.
Okay?
This is a little wordy too. I motion to direct the superintendent to create a letter to the parents or guardians of all Hooksett High School students that are attending Manchester Public High Schools. This letter shall inform parents and guardians that Hooksett has filed an official letter with the Manchester School District declaring the existence of a formal breach of contract. The letter shall outline the process of breach, the dates involved, the process if the outcome is successful, and possible outcomes or consequences if not successful. This drafted letter shall be presented to the Hooksett School Board for its review and deliberation at the February 22nd meeting. Upon approval of this letter by a majority of the school board, the letter will be sent to all parents or guardians of all Hooksett High School students attending any Manchester Public High Schools.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So my intent here, as I'm thinking about this, is that I think for some of the parents perhaps that are in this room and that are following this issue, they understand that we have filed a letter of breach. But to my knowledge, we have not officially informed any of the parents of the actions that we've taken that may concern their children. And just from the people that follow this, there is a lot of different ideas about what happens if breach happens and if it doesn't happen and so forth. So I think it's incumbent upon us as the school district to state our case to those students in an official manner and let them know what the end date of that contract would be. And really my idea here is so it would let people understand that if we are successful with breach, that their students will be able to finish their careers at the high school. That's the main reason that I think we should do this. And I think we should do it in the form of a letter to each parent so that we're sure that they're fully informed of the actions that the district's taking.
Any discussion or does anyone have any questions? David, I do have one point for you. In February, we don't meet on the 26th, we meet on the 19th. We don't meet on the 26th, we meet on the 19th.
So I have a second in here, February 2nd, which will be our next meeting.
Is there any discussion? Any questions?
I think that this is a good idea. I was just more curious about the fact that will we be able to receive, I mean, because from my instance, we don't follow those students after they leave the Hooksett School District. Do we have a way of compiling those addresses?
With bill form.
Okay.
Any other questions? With there being no more discussion, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Do we have anything else under Manchester High School issues? Yes.
I guess this conversation brought up a good point to me. I know it appeared to me, since I've been on the board, that we don't really follow the high school students after they leave the 8th grade. And I'm just throwing this out there for maybe future conversations, but maybe we should have some sort of report at least once a year on how that student body is doing and the process going through, maybe a more formal kind of thing. I think even though they do leave our school district and move on to the high school, they still are members of our community, and so it'd be great to have some sort of formal report on that in the future as things get ironed out and we know where we're going after high school.
Yes, Mrs. Atkinson, I agree with that, and I think that perhaps that should be something that we would consider in a future contract, because that's something that a school could send our school. You know, it could, because it's privileged information, because it's grades and so forth, but, you know, that could be something that we could ask for on an annual basis so that we know what our success rates are and so forth with all the students. So I think that would be a good time to address it. Madam Chair, I'm wondering if it may be appropriate at this time to move up the response to questions from the public, as I think that the ones that we have on, that I have here, all regard the Manchester High School issue. I just thought it might be a time to just move into that.
If the board would like to entertain that, give me a motion.
Make a motion that we move up response to public comment to this portion, to this point in the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
So I'm looking at a sheet from Jen Legier, questions that were presented.
Do you have the one that was in our packet that, that Jen Legier's comments match perfectly from what she provided the board and what is on the exhibit 8.
I think I'm looking at an email from her, but I might have the
It's
other
right
one.
here on the left.
Yeah.
Well, if somebody else wants to bring them up, that way my wording won't be incorrect. I know what the
I can
idea-
read her, what her questions were. Mrs. Legier asked, has the high school options/opportunities committee heard from Pembroke Academy or Concord High School since the December 18th meeting?
So I've answered that already tonight, where we have heard from Pembroke, but not from Concord.
So the answer is yes from Pembroke, no from Concord.
Correct.
The second question, has this same committee gone back to Pinkerton with the all or nothing question proposed by David Pearl at the December 18th meeting?
That was answered also earlier by Dr. Littlefield, said there really anything is on the table.
Third question is, will we continue to set up meetings with Manchester to negotiate an early exit while breach has been filed? I would hope the board will attempt, if for nothing else, to show a paper trail and attempts in good faith when the breach is heard.
I guess that's a good question for us to take up. We're kind of left at this point with our last meeting, board to board, being canceled by Manchester, and them stating the reason being the breach letter. So I guess we could ask them to meet again. I wouldn't be surprised if they declined, because the breach letter is still out there. To answer the other part of that question, which really there is two parts, because we have authorized the superintendent and the council or our attorney to try to negotiate an early exit to the contract. I don't think there's been any more action on that. I'd be glad to motion that we ask our attorney to make another attempt to meet with them to negotiate an early release to our contract, but we can't guarantee that they'll accept that. I would make the motion that we ask our attorney to meet with Manchester to negotiate an early exit to our contract.
Ask the attorney to meet.
Well, the attorney and Superintendent Littlefield.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
And I think it's something that we really have already authorized, but this would just be another effort for us to make an attempt to negotiate with them.
Is there any discussion on this motion? If not, let's call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. On that same question, I was wondering, since Manchester canceled our meeting, should we, because we still have students in Manchester, should we request a meeting with them to discuss our current school situation? I mean, they can say no to us, but we're still in good faith saying, we would like to talk to you. I don't know what the board thought of that.
Dr. Littlefield.
Dr. Littlefield has something to say.
I believe that the board has created a subcommittee. Theoretically, 2 members of the board
Yeah.
to meet with 2 members of the Board of School Committee. And that might accomplish that end. I think that you need to appoint 2 people, that's it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, David.
Having been a person that, one of the people, well, let me back up. Having been somebody that supported the idea of the subcommittee, that wasn't my intent, of having a subcommittee that would meet with a small group of the school board. And since the subcommittee's been formed, I have reconsidered my position about that and am not willing to serve on that board. I think that we should do as we're doing tonight and handle these issues as a full board, because I'm just a little concerned that if that small group starts going in one direction and the rest of the board is kind of unaware. This is, to me, totally new ground. This is not like negotiation committees or other things which have routinely happened before. And I just think that we should all try to do it as much as we can as a group. So I've kind of reconsidered that idea, and I think, you know, as a board, we should meet with the attorney and certainly talk to them, and if the boards want to meet, but I'm reluctant to meet as a subcommittee with the Manchester Board of School Committee.
Carol?
I definitely see, you know, that point. I guess I do see where there may be occasion in the future that it may have to be a smaller group to meet, especially if it is specifically with a small group with Manchester. I guess maybe we should get some idea from Dr. Littlefield and from the attorney as to what strategically would be the best way to move. I guess we could, you know, the majority of what we need to do, we should definitely do as a board, but I think totally giving up that idea of the subcommittee might be a little bit, it's either, we're either ahead of ourselves or we'll need to form it at a later date. Either way, I think might be.
Because it's my understanding at the last meeting, you formed a subcommittee to discuss issues between Manchester and Puxley, correct? But no one was placed on the committee. Yes, Mike?
Well, I think we're mixing two things. I mean, and I think the Manchester School Board may have. The breach, that's one separate item, but we still have students that go to Manchester, and whomever meets with them, whoever sets it up, I think we have to have some type of talk with them for the benefit of our students who are there now, of what can be done or what are they doing to make it the best possible situation for those students. So I think regardless of the breach, we have students there now, and we have to do something to make sure that they're getting the best education.
Now I have a question, and I believe it would be for Dr. Littlefield. I may have missed something, end of holidays, canceling a meeting the Friday before Christmas. In the letter that they sent to us saying they were canceling the meeting with us, they said we were going to get a letter from their attorney. Have we gotten the letter that they claimed we were going to get? Did I miss something? In the letter that they said you will be hearing from our attorney.
Well, I know that Gordon received a phone call from their attorney. I mean, simply acknowledging that he was representing, that it was not the attorney that we thought it might be, and it's a different attorney. But I don't believe that we received any correspondence of substance from the They've been pretty silent.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to clear something up, my initial idea for the subcommittee was basically to plan strategy to handle the breach. So I agree with you that it is two separate subjects and that we should handle it differently. I think we should ask for a meeting with the Board of School Committee to discuss our students that currently attend. And I think that we can limit that conversation to that, probably with the help of our attorney, because obviously some of the issues that are facing some of our kids that are attending may cross into the claims that we made in our breach letter. So I think that's where it gets a little bit tricky. I have no problem meeting with them. I think we would want to bring our attorney, and we would want to seek his advice if issues started to get into an area that may not be a legal advantage to us to go into. But I think that we should ask to meet with them. In fact, I'll make a motion that we ask for a meeting with the Manchester Board of School Committee for the two boards to meet.
Second.
And I think as Mike has pointed out, and Mike has always been focused on our kids that are there, that those are the issues that we should try to focus on if we attend such a meeting.
So the motion just to ask Manchester for a meeting?
Between the two boards.
And I'd like to make it clear to them that it's, for our students who are there now, what can we do or what are they doing for those students? Yes, it may delve into a few of the topics from the breach, but we're not there to negotiate or to talk about the breach, really. We're there for our students that are there now. I'd be willing to do that.
Yes, thank you.
And I would also think that we should talk to our attorney, because the indication in the letter that came the day of the council meeting was that we've set forth a legal process which precludes them from meeting with us. And my understanding of the breach process, it does not do that. So I think that we should talk to our attorney, because although they may feel that's a good process, or it's to their benefit not to meet with us, my reading of that letter was that it was out of their hands, that we had set forth a process that stopped them from doing that. And I don't think that's the case.
Right.
From what I've read,
I
as part of the breach.
So do you want us to have a meeting with our attorney, or do you want us? to
I think Dr. Littlefield could check into that, as he's writing it down right now. Just, it does the, is there anything in the breach process that stops us from meeting with the other board? Certainly if there was, we wouldn't want to meet with them, but.
We already voted on the other motion.
No, we haven't,
No.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'll call it the motion to a vote. David, could you reiterate it, please?
Yes, to ask Manchester to have a meeting between the two boards.
All those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. Now, we're talking to Dr. Littlefield about asking the board.
Do we need a motion for that, or can we just ask for a meeting?
I'm, at this point, I think if Dr. Littlefield could check on that question, I think he's gonna find the answer to be no, but I think we should just check. I don't think there's anything that stops us from meeting with them, but we should check and make sure. And I think that if we were to schedule such a meeting, that we should definitely have Gordon come with us, so.
Now going back to Jen's question, we're on question 4. Understanding that the breach states June 2014 is the termination date. What if the DOA does not find in our favor? What are the chances, in Dr. Littlefield's personal opinion?
I don't think we pay Dr. Littlefield for his personal opinion. Perhaps his professional opinion would be better tonight. I can explain what we were told by the attorney at the board.
Yeah,
It would be, it might be. We were told by the attorney that if they do not find in our favor, that we could appeal. And the appeal process would take us to court and would likely eat up the better part of a year. But of course, there's no guarantee with that time frame, because you're now dealing with the court process. But it would be up to us to appeal the decision and then enter into a legal case. Or we could lose the appeal, and we could lose the breach and do nothing and just continue at Manchester as if nothing had occurred.
Our next question is, as the contract with Manchester states, 2016 would be the next opportunity to notify that we want out for 2018. And will we pursue that if the breach is unsuccessful? Yes, Mike?
Well, I think on that one, it depends on what happens with breach and everything. But if we were unsuccessful, I think that's why, like a survey or some type of, when we get more information, that might be one of the questions on the survey. Do you want us to opt out of Manchester in 2018 by giving notice in 2016? Or we could get more information on that. We have some, but I think that's a little bit later in the process myself.
I think that's kind of far ahead, and there'll be a number of different people probably sitting at this table to make that decision. So I don't think we can really say for certain that we will do it or we won't do it.
Cheryl, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, thank you. I think they both stated it quite frankly, that I'm in agreement.
Her last question is, what is the board's course of action for educating students in Manchester over the next 2 years? Pinkerton is the only school that can accommodate all of our students. I support the board in entering a contract with them. I think a multi-year contract is a better way.
What are you reading?
What?
It was, that's not what the question is.
Could I have,
That's an excerpt from the meeting,
Yeah, that was,
January 3rd.
yeah, but it was just the one question without, what's your board's course of action going forward in regards to our children being educated in Manchester in the current and upcoming years?
Oh,
That
that
was
was
just
2
the
years.
question.
oh, okay, I am reading from the minutes, not from your question. I think we've answered that in that we've directed the superintendent to send a letter to the, or work on a letter to the students. There was a statement at the continuing on with other questions, there was a statement read to the board by John Leskars. Then Mark Messina asked a question, what are we doing to get out of Manchester? They don't want to negotiate, they don't want to talk to us. The poll was about choice or being Manchester only. It is really about choice. Once we negotiate out of Manchester, we can look at choices. I think we stated tonight what we're trying to do to work with Manchester to answer Mr. Messina's questions. Were there any other questions? I was not at the last meeting. Were there any other questions that were missed or not included? Cheryl and Mike?
Not that I can think of at this time.
Okay, if by chance some were missed because Dana was the person that helped compile this list in the second public input, could you please just come up and reiterate it, and we'll make sure we get that question answered for you. Moving on our agenda to the technology expendable trust fund plan revised, and that's in our board packets.